All right, so in this video we're going to be looking at the quiz for lessons 1.1 and 1.2 and seeing what answers you should have gotten for these questions. Now, the order that these questions are in are going to be randomly done, so the order that your quiz was in could be different from this one, but they are still the same questions. All right, so for this first one it says give the equation for the parabola graph below. Well, I can see that remember for the parent function for parabola, the vertex would be at 0, 0. And I can see that the graph is moved to the right 4 and down 1. Now remember, when we're working with the horizontal there, we always do the opposite with what's actually happening. So if it's moving to the right 4, we would say x minus 4. And then vertically, it's exactly as we'd expect. So it's moving down 1, so I'm just going to type in minus 1. So that happens after the squaring of the x there. All right, so we have to identify the domain and range. The domain of the values along the x-axis that are being used, and the range is the values along the y-axis that are being used. Now I see that there's an open circle here at the far left and a closed circle at the far right. So an open circle means that the point is not included. A closed circle means the point is included. So for the domain, it's going to start at -4, but -4 is not going to be included, so we use a parentheses there. And then it ends at +4, and it is included, so we use a bracket. So I want to find the option where it's -4, 4, where there's a bracket on the right side and parentheses on the left side. So the range is looking at the y values that are being used. So this lowest point here is at -3. Again, it's open circle, so that means it's not included, so we use a parentheses at -3. The highest point on the graph reaches is where y is 5. And it's a closed circle, so we'd have a bracket at 5. So I want to see where we have a -3 parentheses and a 5 with the bracket. So that would be that selection. All right, so we want to describe how the equation y equals 2 times absolute value of x minus 3 plus 4 compares to its parent function. So we see that this is a +2, so it's not reflected over the x-axis. So since that +2 is happening outside the absolute value, that means it's a vertical stretch by 2. So we could say it's stretched vertically by a scale factor of 2. So this would be the answer that we would have for the first blank. Then in the second blank, I see that here we have x minus 3. So that means it's going to go 3 units to the right. And this +4 means it's going 4 units up. So for this one, we have to find the slope of the line that goes through these 2 points. So you've got to remember the slope formula. So I'm going to write that over here. So the slope formula, remember that's where we find the difference in our y's divided by our differences in our x's. So the y2, the second y value would be 37. And the first y value is 17. So I'm going to take 37 minus 17. So my numerator would be 20. My denominator, I'm going to take my second x minus my first x. So 7 minus 3. Which is 4. Now we do want to simplify that. 20 divided by 4 would be 5. So the slope would be 5. Okay, so here's another one where we have to find the domain of this graph. So along the x-axis we see that it goes infinitely. We have infinite values to the left and right. So we would say that it goes from -infinity to infinity. The range, the lowest value here is at -1, and that would be included. There is a point there where y is -1, because where x is 4, y is -1. So there is a point there. So we would say it goes from -1 to infinity. So the lowest point is at -1, and it goes up to infinity. Now it says, in what intervals is the graph negative? So it's negative below the x-axis. Okay. So now it's not negative at 3 and it's not negative at 5. That's at the x-axis. When x is 3, y is 0. 0 is neither positive nor negative. When x is 5, y is 0. Again, 0 is neither positive nor negative. But from 3 to 5, the graph is negative. So that's why we would say we would use parentheses there for 3 and 5. Then it says in what intervals is the graph positive? So it's positive over here on the left, to the left of 3, and it's positive over here to the right of 5. So the way that we describe that is from -infinity to 3 and from 5 to infinity. Again, the reason why we use parentheses is because right there at 3 and right there at 5 is where y is 0. And 0 is neither positive nor negative. Okay, where is the graph increasing? The graph is increasing, so we read a graph from left to right. So it's decreasing as we come down here, but as soon as we hit 4, where x is 4, it's going to start increasing. So it's increasing from when x is 4 to infinity. And what intervals is the graph decreasing? So it's decreasing, so from negative infinity to where x is 4, so coming along the x-axis from negative infinity to when x is 4, the graph is decreasing. So lastly, it says fill in the blanks. We got to figure out the original parent function is y equals x squared. We're going to reflect that over the x-axis and stretch it vertically by a scale factor of 5. So remember, if it's reflected over the x-axis, we would put a negative out in front. And if it's stretched vertically by a scale factor of 5, well, we would just leave that as 5. So it's be negative 5x squared. So that's how you would do those questions for the quiz. So hopefully that answers any questions you might have had as far as why you might have gotten some of those wrong. If you still have questions, feel free to still reach out. I'd be happy to help you.